It's just after 5:45 and it's time for Newsbeat. Here's Debbie Randall.
Digital.
FM.
Online.
This is BBC Radio 1.
Tonight we speak to the leader of the BNP who tells Newsbeat his party is no longer a menace.
It was something a bit coarser and cruder than what it is now, and I would actually like a little bit of credit for having changed a party which was in some ways a menace to everything around it, including itself.
But not all of you agree. The full interview and reaction coming up. Newsbeat. Newsbeat. What do you think of when you hear the letters BNP?
The party that discriminates and really prejudiced to other people.
They stand for segregation of Britain.
Well, the leader of the BNP has told Newsbeat his party has changed. Nick Griffin says the days of them being a menace are over. We got a big reaction from you on the text earlier after we played an interview of one of their younger members.
I would be upset if there was no more giant pandas. I'd be upset if there was no more lions, if there were no more tigers. So equally, I'd be upset if white people weren't here anymore.
But we're the same species, which makes it a bit different.
You could say that, but if all of a sudden there weren't any sparrows and there were only crows, I'd still be sad there weren't any sparrows.
And that was one of the main comments to get the most reaction from you. We'll hear some of your texts in a moment, but first, as promised, we put some of them to the leader, Nick Griffin. Now, many of our listeners have been texting in today when we said we were going to speak to you. Many of them are angry at us for giving you airtime at all. Suzanne in Southend says we're allowing you to give racist views to loads of young people. Simon says we should be ashamed of ourselves. And another text says we should now have an Islamic extremist group on too. What would you say to that?
Well, really, if we end up discussing immigration, that'll be because you asked me that question. I don't think that ordinary listeners, as a matter of fact, really are interested. To most people, we're just another political party with a rather different slant. But if people are concerned about what they think of my views, they really need to think, have they heard it direct from my lips, or have they heard it what they've been told by other people in the mass media? This
persona that you have now, is it real BNP or is it just a way of getting more votes?
It's absolutely the real British National Party. For one thing, the party's growing. When I was elected to run it 10 years ago, it had about 1,200 members. Now it's got nearly 14,000. All those people are joined on the current agenda of the British National Party.
So another text for you then. We've had one from Jules in Milton Keynes who says, can a black person join the BNP?
At the moment, not. But it's not because they're black. It's nothing to do with black. It's to do with whether you're indigenous British. And historically, the indigenous British happen to be what the BBC and the ruling elite call white. There's lots of black people vote for us, lots of Sikhs vote for us. But in terms of joining, we've been like a flip side of the Black Police Officers Association. It's not for white people.
When are you allowed to call yourself British?
It's if you're indigenous or the indigenous people accept you as one of them. And it's actually also obvious in Britain who is either indigenous or completely assimilated to the indigenous way of doing things.
Another text we've had asking how you would feel if one of your daughters came home with a black man or an Asian man. How would you feel about that?
I wouldn't be particularly keen on that, just as I would expect their parents probably not to be particularly keen on it.
Do you understand why people do call you racist bigots if you look back at the history of the BNP and where it's come from?
In the old days, it was something a bit coarser and cruder than what it is now, and I would actually like a little bit of credit for having changed a party which was in some ways a menace to everything around it, including itself, into something which is electable, sensible, mainstream, and gives people who are concerned about the way the country's going a legitimate democratic outlet for their concerns.
Is it actually how you think and how you believe rather than just how you portray the party?
Obviously, I've changed my mind on things over the years. I've changed to an extent. The British National Party's changed and evolved, as all parties do.
What would the BNP do to get us out of this recession?
We would not have spent untold billions of pounds bailing out corrupt and failed banks. We'd have let them go to the wall and we'd have put the money into establishing really decent, productive industry.
Law and order-wise, what about your policies on corporal punishment?
We have capital punishment back as available to judges in the case of particularly vicious and premeditated murders. And we would reintroduce corporal punishment, pretty much on the line of the Isle of Man a few years ago. Very now and again, a teenager would do something really too out of order, even for teenagers, and would get birched. And as a result, the Isle of Man had virtually no crime. Since they've given up on that, they've got a lot more crime.
Back to our text quickly then. Mark from Durham wants to know if you would withdraw our troops from Afghanistan.
Yes, Absolutely so. That war's got nothing to do with us. We haven't got the right to be there, neither do we have a duty to be there.
And one last text then from Rosie in Hertfordshire, who says the BNP is disgusting. She'd like to ask you how you sleep at night. Do you sleep well?
I sleep very well, and Rosie's entitled to her view, and although I disagree with it, I'd fight to the death to allow her to have those views.
And we've got our politics reporter Dave Howard live on the line now from Labour's conference in Brighton. Dave, you heard that. What did you make of it?
Well, a strong argument that the BNP's got more to offer than that tough immigration line we know them for. A focus on things like the recession then and law and order. He said the BNP's got more of those ideas now, so it's electable and mainstream, not, to use his own words, a menace to everything around it. No denying that controversial rule, though, that non-whites can't join the party. Just an attempt, if you like, to talk it up, make it sound a bit less like racism.
And Dave, the BNP's making headlines at the Labour conference too.
Yes, the school secretary's been speaking here. He's ordered a study into whether BNP members or any organisation judged guilty of promoting racism should be banned from working as teachers. He says people linked to racist organisations, and he includes the BNP in that, could be barred from schools.
And plenty of very strong reactions on the text, both pro and anti. Alexandra from Dunoon says Britain is a total mixture of nationalities, recent and not so recent. She says the BNP have disgusting racist brains.
Yeah, Jay from Keighley says he'll be voting BNP because his town's overrun by young Asian men drug dealing and organising prostitution. He says local white people are getting racially abused.
This one says her great-grandmother was from Mexico and moved here when she married her English husband. Does this mean she's not ethnically British? How ridiculous.
And this one says he thinks the BNP speaks what many people think. There are too many immigrants, he says.
BBC
Radio 1
Newsbeat.
This is Radio 1 at 6:03.
Newsbeat. Tonight's top story, the leader of the BNP has told Newsbeat his party has changed. Nick Griffin says it's no longer a menace, but something which is electable, sensible and mainstream. We've been getting lots more texts from you on this. Mike in Aldershot says it's about time somebody spoke up about the way most people feel. Another here, go, 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 BNP. I love them, says Laura in Ayrshire. It's British jobs for British people. But lots of you unhappy to hear from the BNP. This is sickening, says Jen from Hay-on-Wye. And no name on this final one, which says a racist wearing a suit is still a racist. And the weather, some showers in southern...